He was fired for being late, but the woman he helped was the restaurant owner. Michael Carter was desperately running through the sidewalks of downtown New York City, his heart racing and 40 minutes late for his third day of work at Manhattan Bistro. His savings had run out the previous week, and that job was his last chance to get money for his mother's medicine. As he turned the corner of Fifth Avenue onto Madison Avenue, he saw an elegant blonde woman fallen on the ground, with documents scattered around her and holding her ankle with a pained expression. Even knowing he would arrive even later to work, Michael stopped instantly. "Are you all right, ma'am?" he asked, crouching beside her. "I think I twisted my ankle," replied Elizabeth Wilson, trying unsuccessfully to get up. "These papers are very important." Michael began gathering the documents while offering his arm to support her. He noticed they were business contracts but didn't ask questions. "I'll help you find a taxi," he said, completely ignoring the time. Elizabeth observed this young man in a waiter's uniform who abandoned his rush to help a stranger. There was something genuine in his gestures, a kindness she rarely encountered in the business world. "You're going to be late because of me," she commented as he helped her walk. "Don't worry, what matters is that you're okay." 20 minutes later, Michael secured a taxi and helped Elizabeth inside. She tried to give him money for his help, but he politely refused. "I just want to know if your ankle will be all right," he said, closing the taxi door. "How can I thank you?" asked Elizabeth through the window. "No need. Take care." Michael started running again, but now he was over an hour late. When he arrived at Manhattan Bistro, breathless and sweating, he found Richard Thompson, the manager, waiting for him with crossed arms and a furious expression. "An hour late on your third day," shouted Richard, loud enough for all employees and some customers to hear. "What kind of irresponsible employee do you think you are?" "Mr. Thompson, I can explain. I was helping a woman who—" "I don't want to hear pathetic excuses," interrupted Richard. "People like you have no commitment to anything in life. You were probably drinking or God knows what." Michael felt his face burn with shame as other waiters and customers watched the scene. "Sir, I really was helping someone who got hurt on the street." "Liar!" yelled Richard. "You're fired. I don't want to see your face here ever again, and don't even think about getting paid for the 2 days you worked. Employees like you don't deserve a single cent." "But sir, I need this job. My mother is sick and—" "Get out of here before I call security." Michael took his badge and handed it over, feeling everyone's eyes on him. He walked to the exit with his head down, carrying not just unemployment, but a humiliation that seemed to burn inside. In the simple Greenwich Village home where he lived with his parents, Michael found Mary Carter, his mother, lying on the couch, struggling to breathe. At 58 years old, she suffered from a heart condition that required expensive, constant medication. "How was work today, son?" she asked with a weak smile. Michael didn't have the courage to tell the truth at that moment. "Everything went fine, Mom. Rest." Robert Carter, his father, arrived from outside with another job rejection. At 60 years old and after 6 months unemployed, his opportunities seemed increasingly scarce. "Companies only want young people," sighed Robert, sitting heavily in the kitchen chair. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. That evening, Jennifer Taylor, Michael's girlfriend of 2 years, came to visit him after her shift at the beauty salon where she worked. She immediately noticed something was wrong. "What happened?" she asked, hugging him in the backyard of the house. Michael recounted the whole situation, from helping the unknown woman to the humiliation at the restaurant. Jennifer listened silently, holding his hands. "You did the right thing," she said. "Any decent person would have done the same. But now I'm unemployed again. I don't know how we'll pay for Mum's medicine next month." "We'll figure it out, honey. We always do." As they talked, the phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Hello?" Michael answered. "Good evening. I'm looking for the young man who helped me this morning on Fifth Avenue." "My name is Elizabeth Wilson." Michael was surprised. How did she get his number? "That's me, Mom. How's your ankle?" "Better, thank you. A witness wrote down the taxi's license plate and got your number from the driver. I'd like to speak with you tomorrow, if possible." "Speak about what?" "I'd rather talk in person. Can we meet at the cafe in Union Square at 2 in the afternoon? Michael agreed, curious about what she might want. The next day, Elizabeth arrived at the cafe a few minutes before the scheduled time. She wore a navy blue blazer and dress pants, showing a natural elegance that caught attention. When Michael arrived, she waved for him to sit. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Much better, thanks to your help." "Michael, isn't it?" "That's right. You said you wanted to talk to me." Elizabeth ordered 2 coffees before starting to speak. "You lost your job yesterday because of me, didn't you?" Michael was taken aback. How did she know? "It wasn't because of you, ma'am. It was because I was late." "But you were late because you stopped to help me. I feel responsible. You're not to blame for anything. I chose to help and I'd do it again." Elizabeth smiled for the first time. "That's exactly why I want to talk to you. My name is Elizabeth Wilson and I have several businesses in the food industry in New York City. I can refer you for a position at another restaurant." Michael felt a wave of hope. "You'd do that for me?" "Of course. I'll call a friend of mine right now, David, who has a restaurant in the financial district." Elizabeth called in front of Michael and explained the situation to David. The conversation seemed to be going well until David asked for a reference from his previous job. "I'll call your former boss to confirm your qualities as an employee," David said on speakerphone. Elizabeth called the Manhattan Bistro and asked to speak with the manager about Michael Carter. "Oh, that young man," said Richard Thompson on the other end of the line. "It was a nightmare working with him, always late, irresponsible, didn't follow orders. We had to fire him because he'd miss work without notice, and when he did come, he was drunk." Michael turned pale. They were complete lies. "Besides," Richard continued, "he was caught trying to steal from the cash register. We only didn't call the police out of pity. I wouldn't recommend him for any job." Elizabeth looked at Michael, who was visibly shaken. "Thank you very much for the information," she said, hanging up. David immediately withdrew the job offer after hearing the references. "I'm sorry," Elizabeth said. "I didn't expect that kind of information." "They're all lies," Michael said, his voice choked. "I never did any of that." Elizabeth studied the young man's face. There was something that didn't match between the character she observed on the street and the accusations she had just heard. "Give me a few days," she said. "I'll look into this situation more deeply." In the following days, Michael tried for jobs elsewhere, but whenever employers called the Manhattan Bistro, they received the same distorted version from Richard. His reputation was being systematically destroyed. At home, the situation was getting complicated. Mary Carter had a crisis overnight and had to go to the emergency room. The doctor was clear. She needed her medication without interruption. If she goes without the medicine for more than 3 days, she could have serious complications, the doctor warned. Michael left the hospital desperate. He managed to get a temporary job delivering food through an app, but the pay barely covered the basic household expenses. Meanwhile, Elizabeth decided to investigate the Manhattan Bistro personally. She dressed in casual clothes and went there for lunch as a regular customer. She wanted to observe Richard Thompson's behavior and understand the situation better. The restaurant was elegant, located in an upscale area of the city. Elizabeth was greeted by a young, timid hostess who led her to a table near the counter where Richard was overseeing the operations. During the meal, Elizabeth witnessed several situations that made her uncomfortable. Richard treated the staff with constant rudeness, yelled at any minor mistake, and made humiliating comments about each one's work ability. "Are you stupid or just pretending?" he shouted at a waitress who dropped a napkin. "I'll deduct the broken dishes from your salary this month." The waitress, a young woman who appeared to be about 20, held back tears and continued working. Elizabeth also noticed that Richard made inappropriate comments to the younger female employees, even touching their shoulders unnecessarily while giving instructions. "You look very pretty today," he said to the hostess, running his hand along her arm. "If you keep this up, I might consider a promotion." The girl smiled awkwardly, clearly uncomfortable. After 2 hours of observation, Elizabeth was certain that Richard Thompson was exactly the type of person who would lie about a former employee to harm him. But there was something else that intrigued her. The restaurant's name sounded familiar. When she got home, Elizabeth decided to check her investments and business holdings. To her surprise, she discovered that the Manhattan Bistro was part of a restaurant group in which she was the majority partner. "How is this possible?" she murmured, reviewing the documents. The business had been acquired 2 years earlier through one of her investment funds. Richard Thompson had been hired only as an operations manager, but apparently presented himself as the owner to employees and customers. Elizabeth called her accountant. "William, I need detailed information about the Manhattan Bistro. When was the last audit?" "Elizabeth, that restaurant is among the most profitable in your portfolio. The manager sends monthly reports always on time. I want a full audit tomorrow." "Any specific problem?" "I suspect I'm being deceived." The next morning, Elizabeth arrived at the restaurant accompanied by William and Emily, her trusted auditor. Richard greeted them with excessive friendliness, clearly nervous about the unexpected visit from the majority partner. "Miss Elizabeth, what an honor to have you here. I hope you enjoyed the food yesterday." Elizabeth feigned surprise. "What do you mean, yesterday?" Richard realized his mistake and tried to cover it up. "Oh, I thought I saw someone who looked like you." During the meeting, Elizabeth specifically asked about human resources policies and recent dismissals. "We had to fire a problematic employee last week," said Richard. "An irresponsible waiter who showed up drunk and tried to steal." "Can you give me more details about this case?" Richard repeated exactly the same lies he had told on the phone. Elizabeth wrote down every word. "And do you have documents proving these accusations?" "Well, we didn't formalize the police report because we felt sorry for the young man." William and Emily began reviewing the accounting books while Elizabeth kept Richard occupied with questions. Within a few hours, they discovered several irregularities: fictitious suppliers, fake invoices, and an overbilling scheme that diverted approximately $20,000 monthly from the restaurant. "Richard," Elizabeth said coldly, "can you explain these suppliers that don't exist?" Richard began to sweat and stammer. "There must be some mistake in the paperwork. And this beverage company that supposedly supplies imported wines but is actually registered at your home address?" "I can explain." Elizabeth stood up. "You don't need to explain anything right now. My lawyers will contact you in the coming days." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Meanwhile, Michael was facing one of the worst weeks of his life. After 5 days without a steady job, he could only earn enough for basic food through app deliveries. His mother's medications had run out 2 days ago. During one of his deliveries, he coincidentally ended up at Manhattan Bistro. He tried to be discreet but was recognized by Samantha, a former waitress colleague. "Michael, what are you doing here?" she whispered. "I work in deliveries now. How about you? How are you?" "Terrible. Richard fired 3 more people this week. He always makes up a different excuse." "What do you mean?" Samantha looked around to make sure they weren't being watched. "He always fires people right before payday. He makes up that the person did something wrong and doesn't pay anything. It's happened to at least 10 employees in recent months. Why doesn't anyone report him? Who's going to believe us over him? He has important connections in the city." Michael was shocked. His firing hadn't been an isolated incident but part of a systematic pattern of abuse. "Do you know other people who were fired like this?" "I know several. Brian, Emily, Anthony, Amanda. They all lost their jobs here because of his lies." Michael wrote down the names. Maybe together they could do something. Over the weekend, Michael managed to speak with 5 former employees of Manhattan Bistro. All had similar stories: arbitrary firings, false accusations, and public humiliation. Amanda Johnson, 23 years old, said she was accused of breaking plates on purpose to harm the restaurant. "He fired me in front of everyone and even said I was a vengeful employee," she recalled. "So I never got another restaurant job after that." Brian Miller, 28 years old, had an even worse experience. "Richard made up that I was selling information to the competition. He said he had proof but never showed anything. He called me a traitor in front of customers." Anthony Brooks, an experienced 40-year-old waiter, revealed something even more disturbing. "He harasses the younger girls. He uses the threat of firing to get favors. Those who don't agree, he makes up a reason to fire." "Do you have proof of this?" asked Michael. "Witnesses, several girls who worked there, can confirm." Michael realized he was facing something much bigger than he had imagined. It wasn't just about his unfair dismissal, but about a systematic pattern of power abuse. On Monday, Elizabeth called Michael. "Can you come to my office this afternoon? I have some important things to discuss with you." Elizabeth's office was in an elegant commercial building in the financial district. Michael had never been in such a sophisticated place. The secretary led him to a meeting room where Elizabeth was waiting with stacks of documents on the table. "Michael, I need to tell you a few things," she said, gesturing for him to sit. "First, I want you to know I investigated everything Richard said about you. They're complete lies." Michael felt enormous relief. "How did you find out?" "I visited the restaurant undercover and saw how he treats the staff. Moreover, I discovered something that will surprise you. I am the true owner of Manhattan Bistro." Michael was stunned. "How?" Elizabeth explained about her investments and how she had discovered that Richard was falsely presenting himself as the establishment's owner. "But there's more. My audit found he has been stealing from the restaurant for over a year. He owes the company about $200,000. "I can't believe it. Richard will be fired and prosecuted. But before that, I want to propose something to you." Michael held his breath. "I'd like you to take over as temporary manager of the restaurant while I search for a permanent replacement for Richard." "Ma'am, I have no management experience. You have something more important, character, and I can teach the rest." Michael thought of his mother at home without medication and his father who hadn't found work in months. "I can start whenever you'd like." The next day, Elizabeth arrived at Manhattan Bistro with Michael, 2 lawyers and an accountant. Richard was at the counter when he saw them entering. "Elizabeth, so good to see you again. Brought guests for lunch?" "Richard, I need to speak with you privately." They went to the restaurant's office. Elizabeth placed a stack of documents on the table. "This is the evidence of your embezzlement scheme," she said coldly. $215,000 over 13 months. Richard's face turned red. "I can explain." "There's nothing to explain. You're fired for just cause and will face criminal charges." "You can't do this to me. I made this restaurant grow. You stole from me for over a year. And on top of that, you slandered innocent employees." "What employees are you talking about?" Elizabeth opened the office door and called Michael to come in. When Richard saw him, his expression changed to fury. "What is this kid doing here?" "Michael will be the new temporary manager," announced Elizabeth. "Are you crazy? This boy isn't capable of anything. He's a loser." "Unlike you, he's honest," Richard exploded. "Honest? He's a slum kid who doesn't even know how to behave in a decent place. People like him are meant to clean floors, not to be in charge of anyone." Richard's prejudice and anger were exposed in front of everyone. Elizabeth looked at him with disgust. "You have 15 minutes to collect your personal belongings and leave. The lawyers will be in touch about the lawsuit." Richard stormed out, slamming the door. Elizabeth turned to Michael. "Are you ready to meet your new team?" When they left the office, all the employees were gathered in the main dining area, obviously nervous about the commotion. Elizabeth asked for everyone's attention. "Everyone, I'm Elizabeth Wilson, majority partner of this restaurant. Richard Thompson has been dismissed for improper practices. From now on, Michael Carter will be your manager." There was a murmur of surprise, but then some employees began to applaud. Samantha, who knew Michael from before, smiled with relief. "Michael," continued Elizabeth, "would you like to say something to the team?" Michael was nervous but took a deep breath. "Everyone, I know this is a strange situation. I only worked here for 2 days before being unfairly fired. But I promise we will make this a place where everyone is treated with dignity and respect." A young waitress raised her hand. "Is it true we'll get fair work schedules?" "Of course," replied Elizabeth. "And also a pay raise for everyone effective today." The atmosphere in the restaurant changed completely. For the first time in a long while, the employees seemed hopeful. During his first week as manager, Michael implemented simple yet significant changes. He created a system of regular breaks, established a shared tip pool that would be divided equally among all employees, and most importantly, instituted weekly meetings where everyone could suggest improvements. "How was your first day off in months?" he asked Samantha, who had taken Sunday to rest. "Unbelievable. I almost couldn't believe it was real." The change in the work environment immediately reflected in customer service. The employees were more smiling, attentive, and motivated. The restaurant's online reviews began to improve drastically. Elizabeth visited the restaurant daily to monitor the transition and was impressed by Michael's natural leadership. "How did you learn to motivate people like that?" she asked. "I think it's just about treating everyone as I would like to be treated," he replied simply. At home, the Carter family's life also began to transform. With the manager's salary, Michael managed to buy all of his mother's medications and still had money left to improve the family's diet. "My son, I'm very proud of you," said Mary Carter, visibly better with her treatment up to date. Robert Carter got a job at Elizabeth's maintenance company after a referral from Michael. For the first time in months, the house regained an atmosphere of hope. Jennifer, his girlfriend, noticed the difference in Michael's confidence and mood. "You're shining," she said during a romantic dinner they could finally afford. "It's strange how life can change so quickly," reflected Michael. 3 months after the management change, Manhattan Bistro became one of the highest-rated restaurants in the area. The team was united, the customers were loyal, and profits had increased by 30%. Elizabeth decided it was time to formalize Michael's position. "Michael, I'd like to make you a proposal," she said during a meeting at the restaurant. "I want to offer you the permanent position of general manager, with profit sharing and full autonomy to run the business. Ms. Elizabeth, but there's one condition. I want you to study business administration. The company will fund a full undergraduate course in business management." Michael was moved. It was more than he had ever dreamed of. "Can I accept both proposals?" "I hope you do." That evening, Michael called all the former employees who had been harmed by Richard and invited them to a meeting at the restaurant. When Amanda, Brian, Anthony, and the others arrived, they found a table set with the house's special dishes. "Everyone," said Michael, "I want you to know that Richard has been prosecuted and ordered to repay all the money he stole. Part of that amount will be used to compensate you for the damages you suffered." Amanda began to cry. "You have no idea how this money will help me. I've been unemployed for 4 months. Additionally," Michael continued, "Elizabeth is opening a second restaurant location, and there are positions for all of you, with better salaries and a respectful work environment." The reaction was one of general joy. Brian hugged Michael. "Man, you could have forgotten about us after you got this position, but you didn't. We went through the same situation. I had to do something." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. 6 months later, Michael was formally enrolled in the business administration course at a private college in New York City. He studied during the mornings and worked at the restaurant in the afternoons and evenings. The routine was intense, but he had never felt so fulfilled. Elizabeth became a mentor, teaching him not only about restaurant management, but about leadership and human development. "True leadership," she said during one of their conversations, "isn't making people work out of fear, but making them want to give their best." "I learned that by watching how Richard did things and deciding to do the opposite," replied Michael. "And it was the right decision." His relationship with Jennifer also grew stronger. With financial stability, they began planning their future together. She got a better job as a receptionist at a medical clinic and was studying to become a certified esthetician. "It seems like our lives have finally fallen into place," she said during a walk in Central Park. "I still can't believe everything that's happened," admitted Michael. "A year ago I was desperate for any job, and look where you are now. It all started because I stopped to help a stranger on the street." "No," corrected Jennifer. "It all started because you're a good person." During his first year as manager, Michael implemented several innovations that caught the attention of the New York City dining scene. He created an internal development program where interested employees could learn different roles within the restaurant. Samantha, for example, who had always been a waitress, showed interest and talent for the kitchen. Michael scraped together resources for her to take a basic cooking course, and now she was the chef's assistant. "I never imagined I could work in the kitchen," she said, proud of her new uniform. "Richard always said that a waitress is born a waitress and dies a waitress." People can transform when they have opportunity, replied Michael. Elizabeth became increasingly impressed with Michael's ability to identify and develop talent in the team. In no time, Manhattan Bistro became known not only for its food, but as a place where employees were valued and grew professionally. The story began attracting attention in the local media. A reporter from a New York City food magazine wanted to do a story about the restaurant's transformation. "How do you explain such a drastic change in such a short time?" asked the journalist during the interview. "I believe that when you treat people with dignity, they respond with excellence," replied Michael. "And what was it like taking over management so young and without formal experience?" "Elizabeth gave me an opportunity when no one else would. I try to honor that trust every day." The article was published with the title, "From Waiter to Manager, A Lesson in Second Chance," and brought even more recognition to the restaurant. Richard Thompson, meanwhile, faced the consequences of his actions. Besides having to repay the stolen money, he was sentenced to community service and had his reputation ruined in the industry. No respectable establishment would hire him after the story spread in the sector. Elizabeth learned through mutual acquaintances that he was working as a waiter in a dive bar on the outskirts, earning less than half of what he used to pay his former employees. "I don't feel sorry for him," she told Michael. "He had every opportunity to be a decent person and chose to be corrupt and cruel. Still, I can't help but think that everyone deserves a second chance," reflected Michael. "It's this ability to forgive that makes you a special leader, but some people only learn when they lose everything." The second restaurant opened in Greenwich Village near the Carter family home. Michael actively participated in the planning and team selection, applying all the lessons he had learned in the first year. To his delight, he managed to employ not only the former staff who had been harmed by Richard, but also several people from his old neighborhood who were unemployed. His father, Robert, was moved to see his son opening a business in the very neighborhood where they had struggled so hard to survive. "Son, you've brought hope to our community," he said with tears in his eyes. "Dad, I never forget where we came from." During the opening, Mary Carter, now fully recovered thanks to proper treatment, cut the symbolic ribbon accompanied by Elizabeth. "Michael was always special," she told the small crowd gathered. "Since he was little, he helped everyone in need." Elizabeth took the microphone. "This young man exemplifies that character is worth more than any diploma or experience. When we bet on the right people, they surprise us." The new restaurant was a success from day one. The community embraced the project, and soon there was a waiting list for tables on weekends. Michael now divided his time between the two establishments, finishing his college degree and planning new expansions. Elizabeth had become practically a professional mother to him, guiding every step of his career. "I have a proposal for you," she said, during a meeting in her office. "How about we think about a third location, but this time with you as a minority partner?" Michael was speechless. The proposal represented not only professional growth, but the opportunity to become a real entrepreneur. "Ms. Elizabeth, I don't have capital to invest. You invested something much more valuable, your time, your effort, and your dedication. That is worth much more than money." 2.5 years after that encounter on the sidewalk of Fifth Avenue, Michael Carter graduated in business administration with the highest grades in his class. Elizabeth made sure to be at the graduation ceremony, along with his parents and Jennifer. During the keynote speech, Michael was mentioned as an example of determination and overcoming. The professor told the story of his life transformation, from the unemployed waiter to the successful businessman. "Some students come here to get a diploma, others come to change their lives. Michael Carter came to change many people's lives," said the keynote speaker. After the ceremony, the family celebrated at one of Michael's restaurants. Jennifer had accepted his marriage proposal the previous week, and they were planning the ceremony for the end of the year. "Remember when you told me you didn't know how you were going to pay for Mom's medicine?" Jennifer asked, holding his hand. "It feels like it was in another life," Michael replied. "Actually, it was in this life. You just discovered who you really were." Mary Carter approached the table where they were talking. "Michael, I want you to know that the pride I feel for you has nothing to do with the money you make or the success you've had." "Then what is it about, Mum?" "It's about the man you've become." You never lost your humility or forgot to help those in need." Elizabeth overheard the conversation and was moved. That simple, united family reminded her of the values that sometimes got lost in the business world. "Michael," she said, joining the group, "I have another proposal for you." "Now I'm scared," he joked. "How about we apply our restaurant model in other cities? I'm thinking of a social franchise where part of the profits goes to vocational training programs in underprivileged communities." The idea was ambitious and aligned with the values Michael had developed. They spent the following months developing the project, which was named Second Chance: Restaurants and Human Development. The concept was simple. Each franchise unit had to hire at least 50% of its staff from people in socially vulnerable situations, offering training, fair wages, and a career plan. The first franchised restaurant was opened in Miami, in the Miami metropolitan area. Michael traveled to oversee the opening and was moved to see that the model worked in another context. The local manager was a former inmate who had served time and couldn't find employment. Given the opportunity through the franchise, he proved dedicated and competent, becoming a respected leader in the community. "You changed my life without even knowing me," the manager told Michael during the opening. "I hope to do the same for others one day." "That's exactly what we expect from each unit," Michael replied. By the third year of the project, there were already 15 Second Chance restaurants spread across New York State, employing over 300 people who previously had no opportunities in the job market. Michael married Jennifer in a simple yet emotional ceremony at the neighborhood church where they grew up. Elizabeth was the couple's maid of honor, and the reception was held at the first restaurant he managed. During his wedding speech, Michael couldn't hold back his emotions. "4 years ago, I was a desperate young man who didn't know how I was going to pay for my sick mother's medicine. Today, I'm surrounded by family, friends, and people who gave me opportunities when I needed them most." He looked at Elizabeth. "Especially you, who believed in me when I didn't even believe in myself." "I just saw what was already there," Elizabeth replied. "You were always special. You just needed a chance to show it." The couple moved into their own apartment in Greenwich Village, close to the restaurants and family. Jennifer graduated in aesthetics and opened her own salon, applying the same values of dignity and work that she had learned from observing Michael. Robert Carter, now a maintenance supervisor at Elizabeth's company, had completely regained his self-esteem and become an exemplary employee. Mary Carter, with her health stabilized, returned to work part-time as an administrative assistant at one of her son's restaurants. "Our family has never been so united," she said during a Sunday lunch. "The hardships brought us closer, but prosperity did too." "The important thing is never to forget where we came from," Michael replied. "Impossible to forget. You make sure to remind us every time you hire someone who was in the same situation we were," Robert joked. 5 years after that day on Fifth Avenue, Michael was invited to speak at universities and business events about humanized leadership and social responsibility. His story had become a case study in business schools, demonstrating how small acts of kindness can generate profound and lasting transformations. During a lecture at the National Business Institute, a student asked what had been the most important moment in his journey. "It wasn't when I became a manager, nor when I graduated, nor when I opened the first restaurant," Michael answered. "It was when I decided to stop and help a stranger on the street, even knowing it would cost me my job." Why was that moment so important? Because that's when I chose to be who I really was, regardless of the consequences. All the good things that happened afterward came from that choice. Elizabeth, who was in the audience, smiled proudly. That young man had become much more than a successful businessman. He had become a leader who inspired others to be better. The Second Chance network continued to grow, but always maintained its original values. Each new franchisee went through a rigorous selection process where character mattered more than capital. Michael developed a monitoring program where he visited each unit monthly, not just to check financial results, but to talk with employees and understand their stories. "I never forget that every employee is a person with dreams, fears, and needs," he explained to a business magazine. "When you treat people like numbers, you lose the essence of what it means to lead." The project's success caught the attention of international organizations. Michael received invitations to expand the concept to other countries, but he preferred to first consolidate the work in the United States. "There's still so much to do here," he told Elizabeth. "Every American city has people needing a second chance." During the 6th anniversary of the first restaurant under his management, Michael organized a party for all the employees who had worked with him over the years. Samantha, now head chef at one of the locations, prepared a special banquet. Brian had become supervisor of 3 restaurants. Amanda had opened her own catering business, always remembering the values she learned working with Michael. "Looking at you all, I see we've done more than build restaurants," Michael spoke during the party. "We've built a family based on respect and opportunity." "And it all started with you getting fired," joked Samantha, drawing laughter from everyone. "Sometimes the worst moments of our lives are doors to the best," and reflected Michael. Elizabeth stood up to speak. "When I met Michael, I saw a young man of good character who was going through difficulties. I never imagined he would become not only a successful entrepreneur, but an agent of social transformation. What impresses me most," she continued, "is that the more he grows, the humbler he becomes. The more he has, the more he gives. That is the true meaning of leadership." The audience applauded emotionally. That celebration represented much more than the success of a business. It represented proof that values like kindness, honesty, and compassion still had a place in the modern world. At the end of the party, Michael and Jennifer walked together to the place where it all began, the corner of 5th Avenue and Madison Avenue. "Do you have any regrets?" asked Jennifer. "None. And you?" "Only that I didn't meet you sooner." They laughed and embraced in the same spot where, years earlier, Michael had made the decision that would change their lives forever. "If I could go back in time," said Michael, "I would do everything exactly the same. Even knowing you would be fired, especially knowing I would be fired, because that's what brought me here, to you, to this life we've built." Jennifer kissed him gently. "Then let's keep building. Forever." They walked hand in hand down the busy street, 2 young people who had learned that true wealth isn't measured in money, but in the ability to make a difference in people's lives. The sun set over New York City, tinting the sky gold. On the corner where it all began, other people hurried by with their own problems and dreams, unaware that years earlier, in that very spot, a simple act of kindness had planted the seed of a transformation that would touch hundreds of lives. Michael looked back one last time, not with nostalgia for the past, but with gratitude for the present and hope for the future. Tomorrow would be a new day to help someone, to give an opportunity, to prove that there are still people willing to stop in the middle of life's rush to extend a hand to those in need. And so, under the New York City evening sky, Michael and Jennifer moved toward the future, carrying with them the certainty that the best in life happens when we choose to be better than our circumstances, when we decide that kindness is worth more than profit, and when we understand that our true wealth lies in the ability to transform lives. Michael Carter's story had begun with an unfair dismissal, but it had become an epic of overcoming, love, and hope that would continue inspiring others to believe in the transformative power of human kindness. And in Michael's mind, as he walked beside the woman he loved, echoed a simple but powerful certainty. Every time we choose to help someone, we're not just changing that person's life, we're planting seeds for a better world for everyone. That evening at home, while having dinner together, Jennifer asked a question she had long wanted to ask. "Michael, have you ever wondered why Elizabeth was on that street that day?" "Of course," a few times. "And did you reach any conclusion?" Michael thought for a few seconds before answering. "I think some things in life happen without explanation. What matters isn't why she was there, but what we did with that opportunity." "Don't you think it was fate?" "I think fate is the name we give to the consequences of our choices. If I had walked right past her, my fate would be completely different." Jennifer smiled. "So our fate was built by our choice to be good people. And it continues to be built every day." They finished dinner in comfortable silence, each lost in their thoughts about the journey that had brought them there. The next morning, Michael woke up early, as he always did, to visit the restaurants before the rush began. It was his favorite time of day, when he could calmly chat with the staff and check that everything was in order. On his way to the first restaurant, his phone rang. It was Elizabeth. "Michael, can you come to my office today? I have a special proposal for you." "Of course. Did something happen?" "Something very good. I'll expect you at 10 o'clock. Michael was curious. Elizabeth always had new ideas, but her tone of voice seemed especially excited. In the office, Elizabeth greeted him with a radiant smile and a folder full of documents. "Michael, over the past 6 years, you've proven to be not only an excellent manager, but a true leader. The Second Chance Network is a success that exceeds all my expectations." "Thank you, Elizabeth. But I feel it's the result of the whole team's work." "Exactly. And that's why I want to make a proposal that reflects that reality." Elizabeth opened the folder and showed the documents to Michael. "I want to transfer 51% ownership of the entire Second Chance Network to you. You will become the majority partner and president of the company." Michael was speechless. The proposal was huge and unexpected. "Elizabeth, I don't know what to say. Don't know what. Why would you do this?" "Because you turned an idea into reality. Because you've shown that you can lead with heart without losing your head. And because I believe the company will be in better hands with you." "But I don't have the money to buy those shares. I'm not selling, I'm donating with one condition." Michael waited for her to continue. "That you forever maintain the values that brought us here. That you never forget that profit is important, but purpose is fundamental." Michael felt tears in his eyes. It was more than he had ever dreamed of. "Elizabeth, you've changed my life in so many ways I can't even count. And you've changed mine too. You taught me that true success in business isn't measured just in numbers, but in transformed lives." They signed the documents that same day. Michael was now the majority owner of a restaurant network employing more than 500 people in 20 different cities. His first decision as president was to create an educational assistance fund for employees' children, ensuring that future generations would have access to even better opportunities. When he shared the news with Jennifer, she hugged him emotionally. "I'm so proud of you. I still can't believe this is real." "It's real because you deserve it. Because you never gave up on your values, even when it would have been easier to do so." That evening, during dinner with his parents, Michael shared the news. Mary Carter wept with emotion, remembering all the nights she had worried about her son's future. "My boy has become a successful man," she said, wiping away tears. "Mom, I've always been your boy. Success doesn't change that." Robert Carter, a man of few words, simply said, "Son, you've honored our family. Dad, our family has always had honor. I just had the opportunity to show it to the world." In his first year as president of the Second Chance Network, Michael implemented new social programs and expanded operations to other states, always maintaining focus on service quality and employee well-being. He created an exchange program between units where employees from different cities could spend time in other locations, learning new techniques and sharing experiences. Samantha was the first to participate in the program, spending 3 months in Washington, D.C. to learn regional cooking techniques. "I never imagined I'd leave New York City," she told Michael over the phone, "and now I'm here learning about the cuisine of the heartland." "How's the experience going?" "Incredible. I'm seeing how our values adapt to different local cultures while always maintaining their essence." The program was a success, creating a network of highly qualified and culturally diverse employees united by the same principles of respect and opportunity. During a conference on corporate social responsibility in Washington, D.C., Michael was invited to speak about the Second Chance model. The audience included business people from across the country interested in learning about social impact businesses. "The secret to our success," Michael said during his speech, "isn't in complicated formulas or revolutionary techniques. It's in treating every employee as a complete human being, with dreams, needs, and potential to grow." A business person raised their hand. "But how do you maintain profitability while focusing so much on social aspects?" "Actually," Michael replied, "we've found that valued employees are more productive, more creative, and more loyal. Our turnover is almost zero, which reduces training costs. Our service quality is exceptional, which attracts more customers. The financial result is a consequence of doing the right thing." After the speech, several business people approached Michael interested in applying similar concepts in their companies. This gave him the idea to create a consulting program in humanized leadership. "What if we created a division of the company focused on teaching other organizations to implement our methods?" he proposed to Elizabeth during a meeting. "I'd love to see our values spread beyond the food service sector," she replied. "How about we start with a pilot project?" The first client of Second Chance Consulting was a supermarket chain facing problems with high turnover and low productivity. Michael and his team spent 3 months working with managers, implementing gradual changes in the organizational culture. The results were impressive. Within 6 months, turnover decreased by 70% and customer satisfaction increased significantly. The case became a reference in the retail sector. "See how our methods work in any field," Michael commented to Elizabeth. "What impresses me is your ability to adapt the principles without losing the essence. I learned that by watching you all these years." Second Chance Consulting grew rapidly, serving companies across various sectors: retail, services, industry, and even public agencies. Michael had become a national reference in humanized leadership. During an interview with a national magazine, the journalist asked about his future plans. "We want to prove that it's possible to run profitable businesses without exploiting people," Michael replied. "That business success and social responsibility can not only coexist, but also enhance each other." "And how do you see the role of the entrepreneur in today's society?" "I believe every entrepreneur has a social responsibility, not just to generate profits, but to contribute to a better world. Every company should ask itself, what legacy are we leaving beyond the financial numbers?" The interview had a wide impact, establishing Michael as an important voice in the debate on business sustainability and social responsibility. At home, Jennifer watched proudly as her husband's career grew, but always made sure he didn't lose the balance between work and personal life. "Are you happy with all this?" she asked during a weekend they spent at the beach. "Completely, but what makes me happiest is being able to share it with you. And I'm happy to see that you've never lost your humility, despite all the success." "How could I lose it? You're always here to remind me of who I am." They laughed and walked hand in hand along the beach, enjoying a rare moment of peace away from the rush of business. "Michael," Jennifer said suddenly, "I have some news for you." "What news?" "We're expecting a baby." Michael stopped walking, processing the information. After a few seconds of silence, he hugged her and lifted her in the air, shouting with joy. "Really? We're having a child." "We're having a child." They kissed on the beach as the sun set, marking the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. Jennifer's pregnancy coincided with the 10th anniversary of the Second Chance Network. Michael decided to celebrate the occasion in a special way by creating a foundation that would offer full college scholarships to low-income youth. "I want our child to grow up in a world where education is accessible to everyone," he explained to Elizabeth. "It's a beautiful initiative. How will we fund it? Each unit of the network will allocate 5% of its annual profits to the foundation, and we'll seek partnerships with universities." The Second Chance Foundation was launched with great impact, offering 100 scholarships in the first year. Michael made sure to personally participate in the selection process, prioritizing not only high grades, but also leadership potential and social commitment. During the ceremony for the first scholarship awards, Michael gave a speech to the selected youth. "You are receiving an opportunity, but remember, opportunity without effort doesn't yield results. Study, dedicate yourselves, and in the future create opportunities for other young people like you." One of the scholarship recipients, a young man from the outskirts of New York City, raised his hand. "Mr. Michael, how can we repay this chance we're being given?" "By becoming ethical and competent professionals. And when you get there, remember to extend a hand to those who come after you." The answer moved the entire audience, including Elizabeth, who watched proudly as the young man she had mentored, now much more than a protege, like a son to her, spoke. Months later, Elizabeth Carter Taylor was born, named in honor of the woman who had changed the family's destiny. The delivery went smoothly, and the girl came into the world healthy and crying loudly. "She has her father's lungs," joked Jennifer, still tired but happy. Michael held his daughter for the first time, moved to tears. "Hi, little one. Daddy and Mommy have prepared a special world for you." Elizabeth, now officially the child's godmother, visited the family at the hospital. "She's perfect," she said, holding the baby carefully. "Elizabeth," said Michael, "thank you for everything. Without you, none of this would exist." "Michael, you've given me much more than you've received. You taught me that true success is about the lives we touch." Motherhood brought a new dimension to Jennifer's life, who decided to temporarily reduce her activities at the salon to dedicate herself to her daughter. Michael Carter reorganized his schedule to spend more time at home, discovering simple joys like giving bottles in the middle of the night and changing diapers. "I never imagined I could be so happy doing such simple things," he commented to Jennifer during one of those late nights. "It's because now you understand that true wealth lies in moments, not achievements." "Exactly. And I want our daughter to grow up knowing that." During little Elizabeth's first year of life, Michael made an important decision. He created an administrative board for the Second Chance Network, delegating more responsibilities to his team and reducing his daily workload. "I want to be present in my daughter's childhood," he explained to Elizabeth. "All the businesses in the world aren't worth missing her growing up." "It's the wisest decision you could have made," Elizabeth supported. "Besides, the company already runs on its own thanks to the work you've done." The board was composed of Samantha, now culinary director of the network, Brian, operations director, and other employees who had grown with the company. Michael remained as chairman, but with a more strategic and less operational role. The change was positive for both the family and the business. The company continued to grow under shared leadership, and Michael found a healthy balance between work and personal life. During an afternoon at home, playing with his daughter while Jennifer rested, Michael received an unexpected call. It was a journalist from an international magazine interested in doing a story about the Second Chance Network. "Mr. Carter, we're preparing a special edition about companies that transform lives around the world. Your story reached us through contacts in the United States." "I'm honored by the interest," replied Michael, rocking his daughter in his lap. "We'd like to interview you and make a documentary about the network. Would that be possible?" Michael accepted, seeing an opportunity to inspire other entrepreneurs around the world to adopt similar practices. The international team spent a week in the United States, filming the network's locations, interviewing employees, and documenting the social transformations generated by the restaurants. The documentary Second Chance, Transforming Lives Through Business, was shown in over 40 countries, bringing international recognition to Michael and his team's work. "I never imagined our story would reach so far," Michael commented during a video conference with European entrepreneurs interested in applying the model in their countries. "Human kindness is universal," replied one of the participants. "Your work proves it's possible to do business differently." The international success opened doors to expand the Second Chance concept to other countries, but Michael preferred to first focus on consolidating the work in the United States and dedicating time to his family. "There's still much to do here," he told Elizabeth, "and now I have a daughter who needs me." "You're making the right choices with the right priorities," Elizabeth supported. During little Elizabeth's second birthday, the family organized a party at the first restaurant Michael had managed. It was a special celebration, bringing together old and new employees, former colleagues who had become friends, and the extended family that had formed over the years. Mary Carter, now a doting grandmother, wouldn't let go of her granddaughter. "This girl will grow up surrounded by love and good examples," she said, watching her daughter play in Samantha's lap. "And she'll learn early on that the most important thing in life is human relationships," added Robert Carter. During the party, Michael gave an emotional speech. "Looking at all of you today, I see much more than employees or business partners. I see a family we built together based on values that go far beyond profit." He picked up his daughter in his arms. "And I want Elizabeth to grow up knowing that true success in life is measured by the ability to do good, to help people, and to build a better world for future generations. The audience applauded emotionally, aware they were witnessing not just the celebration of a successful company, but the legacy of values that would be passed down to future generations. That night at home, Michael and Jennifer put their daughter to sleep and sat on the porch to talk. "Are you happy with the life we've built?" asked Jennifer. "Happier than I ever thought possible," replied Michael. "I have a beautiful family, meaningful work, and the opportunity to help other people every day. And most importantly, you're still the same good person I met. I hope to always remain so." They stayed silent for a few minutes, listening to the sounds of the night and reflecting on the journey that had brought them there. "Michael," said Jennifer, "do you have any regrets in this whole story?" "Just one." "What is it?" "Not having met Elizabeth sooner. Imagine all we could have built with more time." Jennifer laughed. "I think you met at the right time. If it had been earlier, perhaps you wouldn't have been ready to seize the opportunity." "True. Maybe life has its own timing." "It certainly does." They went inside, knowing that tomorrow would be a new day to continue building the legacy they wanted to leave for their daughter and the world. Years passed, and little Elizabeth grew up in an environment surrounded by love, solid values, and inspiring examples. By age 5, she occasionally accompanied her father to the restaurants, where she was greeted like a princess by all the staff. "Daddy, why is everyone here so happy?" she asked during one of these visits. "Because we work, doing what we love, and treat each other like family," explained Michael. "And can I work here when I grow up?" "You can work wherever you want, sweetheart. The important thing is that it's work that makes you happy and helps other people." Elizabeth grew up understanding early on that professional success must come with purpose and social responsibility. It was common to see her playing restaurant at home, always making sure all her dolls were well taken care of. When she turned 10, the Second Chance Network was already operating in 15 U.S. states and had influenced hundreds of other companies to adopt more humanized management practices. The Second Chance Foundation had already benefited over 1,000 young people with university scholarships. During the 10th anniversary celebration of the first unit under Michael's management, he decided to make a special announcement. "Today, I want to share an important decision," he said to the gathered team. "Starting next year, I will further reduce my operational involvement in the company to dedicate myself to writing a book about our journey." The announcement caused surprise, but also understanding. Everyone knew Michael had always prioritized work-life balance. "The book will tell our story, but mainly it will teach other business owners how to implement humanized management in their businesses," he explained. Elizabeth, now a 65-year-old woman, but with the energy of someone much younger, fully supported the decision. "Your story needs to be told to inspire others," she said. "You have a moral obligation to share what we've learned together." Michael spent the following year writing the book, Second Chance: How to Transform Lives Through Business. The work blended autobiography with a practical guide, teaching concepts of humanized leadership through real-life examples. The book was launched with great success, quickly becoming a bestseller in the business category. Michael traveled across the country, giving lectures and signing autographs, always accompanied by Jennifer, and when possible by his daughter Elizabeth. During one of these lectures in Chicago, a businesswoman from the audience asked a question that deeply marked Michael. "Mr. Michael, what advice would you give to someone who wants to start a business but has no capital?" Michael thought about his own journey before answering. "The most important capital you can have isn't money, it's character. If you are an honest, hard-working and committed person, opportunities will appear. Money is a consequence, not a cause. But how do you survive while the opportunities haven't arrived? Do your best in any situation, no matter how small. Treat people well, be honest in all your relationships, and never give up on your values, even when it seems easier to let them go." The answer moved the entire audience and went viral on social media, inspiring thousands of young entrepreneurs. Back in New York City, Michael resumed his quieter routine, dividing time between the strategic supervision of the company, family life, and social projects. At 40 years old, he had achieved a balance that many executives take a lifetime to find. The Second Chance Network continued to grow, but always maintaining the quality and original values. Each new unit went through a rigorous franchisee selection process, prioritizing a humanized profile over financial capacity. During an administrative board meeting, Samantha presented an interesting proposal. "Michael, what if we created a Second Chance corporate university? A place where we can train humanized leaders for our network and for other companies." The idea was ambitious, but aligned with the company's mission to transform the business world. "That's an excellent idea," Michael replied. "Let's develop a pilot project." The Second Chance Corporate University was inaugurated 2 years later, offering in-person and online courses on leadership, humanized management, social responsibility, and ethical entrepreneurship. The first dean of the university was Michael himself, who developed an innovative curriculum based on real cases and practical experiences. "We don't just want to train competent administrators," he explained during the inaugural class. "We want to train leaders who understand that business success must come with positive social impact." The university's courses quickly became a benchmark in the country, attracting students from all over the United States and even from abroad. Elizabeth, now 15 years old, began to show interest in the family business, but always with a critical and innovative perspective. "Dad, why don't you use more technology to expand the company's social impact?" she asked during a dinner. "What do you mean, honey?" "Like an app that connects restaurants with unemployed people looking for opportunities, or an online platform to teach humanized management." Michael was impressed by his daughter's maturity and creativity. "Those are excellent ideas. Do you want to help develop these projects?" "Yes, I do." From that moment on, Elizabeth began to actively participate in the development of technological solutions for the company, always supervised by her father and her godmother Elizabeth. The Opportunity app was launched the following year, connecting people seeking employment with companies committed to humanized management. Within a few months, it had already facilitated the placement of over 5,000 people in the job market. "I'm impressed with the company's ability to adapt to new times," Brian commented during a strategic planning meeting. "The credit all goes to Elizabeth," Michael replied. "She brought a perspective that we, from the previous generation, didn't have." "And she's not even 20 yet," Samantha observed. "Exactly. Imagine what she'll be able to achieve in the future." During her final year of high school, Elizabeth surprised the family with an announcement. "Dad, I've decided I want to study business administration, but I want to attend college abroad." "Why?" asked Jennifer. "I want to learn about business models from other countries, to bring new ideas to our company. I think I can contribute more with a global perspective." Michael and Jennifer had a long conversation about their daughter's decision. On one hand, they would miss her terribly. On the other, they recognized it was an important opportunity for her development. "If this is what you want, we'll support you," said Michael. "But on one condition, you promise not to forget where you came from and what our values are." "I could never forget, Dad. You taught me that success without purpose is empty." Elizabeth was accepted into one of the top universities in the United States to study business administration with a focus on corporate sustainability. The farewell at the airport was emotional, but everyone knew she was ready for this new chapter. "Take good care of my goddaughter," Elizabeth Wilson told Michael at the airport. "She's not a little girl anymore. She's a young woman with her own ideas and great determination. Exactly like her father." During Elizabeth's 4 years of college in the United States, she maintained constant contact with her family and the company through weekly video calls. She always shared what she was learning and how it could be applied to the family business. "Dad, there are companies here that are certified as B Corp," she shared during one call. "These are businesses that prove they have a positive social and environmental impact. I think we should pursue this certification." "Research it further and make a proposal when you return," Michael replied. During summer breaks, Elizabeth always returned to the United States to intern at the company and implement small innovative projects. It was visible how she grew professionally with each experience. In her final year of college, she developed her thesis on the Second Chance model, analyzing its social and economic impact over 2 decades. The work was so well received that it was published in an international academic journal. "I'm very proud of you," Michael said when he learned about the publication. "Dad, this is just the beginning. I have so many plans for when I return." "What kind of plans?" "International expansion, cultural exchange programs, partnerships with universities. I want to take our values worldwide." Michael smiled, recognizing in her the same passion for social transformation that had guided him throughout his career. When Elizabeth graduated summa cum laude, the entire family traveled to the United States for the graduation ceremony. It was a moment of great pride and emotion. "My girl has become a woman ready to change the world," Jennifer said, hugging her daughter after the ceremony. "I learned from the best," Elizabeth replied, looking at her parents. Back in the United States, Elizabeth officially took on the role of Innovation Director for the Second Chance Network. Her first major initiative was to pursue B Corp certification, making the company one of the first restaurant chains in the country to receive this recognition. "Now we have an international seal that proves our commitment to positive social impact," she explained during a press conference. The certification brought even more international recognition to the company, opening doors to global partnerships and expansion opportunities. During a family meeting, Elizabeth presented her international expansion plan. "Dad, I've received invitations to open Second Chance locations in 5 different countries: Spain, Canada, Mexico, Australia, and Germany." Michael was impressed by the scale of the opportunities. "These are very different markets. How will we adapt our model?" "Each country will have its cultural adaptations, but the core values will remain the same: dignity in work, opportunities for those most in need, and humanized management." The International Expansion Project took 3 years to implement. Elizabeth personally led the opening of the first units in each country, adapting the model to local realities without losing its essence. The London unit was the first to open, in partnership with a local NGO that worked with immigrants. The restaurant became a symbol of social integration in the Spanish capital. "It's moving to see our values being applied in different cultures," commented Michael during a visit to London. "And it's amazing how people respond in the same way when they're treated with dignity," added Elizabeth. The success of the international expansion established the Second Chance Network as a global reference in social impact business. Michael and Elizabeth were invited to speak at international conferences and renowned universities. During a lecture at Stanford University, a student asked Michael what had been the most memorable moment of his career. "It wasn't when I became a successful entrepreneur," he replied. "It was when I understood that my success only made sense if I could help others achieve theirs." "And how did you come to that conclusion?" "By observing that the people around me grew along with me, that we were a team building something greater than any of us individually." The lecture was streamed online and watched by millions of people around the world, inspiring a new generation of social entrepreneurs. Back in the United States, Michael decided it was time to take another step in his social transformation journey. At 50 years old, he announced the creation of the Second Chance Institute, a non-profit organization dedicated to training humanized leaders across the country. "I want our values to spread beyond our businesses," he explained during the Institute's launch. "I want to train a generation of leaders who understand that purpose is as important as profit." The Institute offered full scholarships for young leaders from underprivileged communities to study humanized management and social entrepreneurship. Graduates committed to returning to their communities to implement social transformation projects. Elizabeth assumed the presidency of the Institute, while Michael remained as a strategic advisor. It was a demonstration that the new generation was ready to carry forward the family legacy. "Dad," said Elizabeth during the Institute's inauguration, "thank you for teaching me that true success is measured by the impact we have on people's lives. Daughter, you've already surpassed all my teachings. Now I'm the one learning from you." During the graduation ceremony of the Institute's first class, Michael was moved to see 100 young leaders committing to transform their communities. "You are the future I dreamed of when I was just an unemployed waiter," he said in the closing speech. "Prove that it's possible to change the world by doing good." One of the graduates, a young leader from a Los Angeles slum, approached Michael after the ceremony. Mr. Michael, I want you to know that your story inspired me to never give up. I came from a very difficult reality, but now I know I can make a difference in my community." "And you will," replied Michael, "because you have the most important thing, the will to help." "How can I repay everything I learned here?" "By applying it in your community and in the future, training other leaders like you." This conversation deeply marked Michael, reminding him why he had started this social transformation journey. That night, at home, he reflected with Jennifer about everything they had built together. "Do you remember when our biggest worry was paying for your mother's medicine?" asked Jennifer. "How could I forget? It feels like yesterday, and at the same time it feels like it was in another life. And look where we are now. Our daughter is changing the world. Our businesses impact millions of people, and we created an institute that will train leaders for generations." Michael hugged her. "And most importantly, we did all this without compromising who we are. Do you think your mother would be proud? I'm sure she is proud wherever she is. Mary Carter had passed away a few years earlier, at 82, surrounded by love, and having seen her son become a national reference. Her last words to Michael were, 'My boy became the man I always knew he was.' Robert Carter, now 80 years old, still visited the restaurants regularly, proud of his son and granddaughter's success. 'I never imagined my family would come this far,' he said during a Christmas party. 'Dad, we've always been a special family. We just needed opportunities to show it,' Michael replied. 'And you created opportunities not just for us, but for thousands of other families. That's what I learned from you and Mom, to help whenever possible.' In recent years, Michael had further reduced his operational involvement in the businesses to dedicate himself to writing new books and mentoring young social entrepreneurs. His second book, Leadership from the Heart: How to Transform Organizations Through Empathy, became an international classic on humanized management. Elizabeth, now 30, had married a college classmate who shared her values of social transformation. They worked together on the international expansion of the network and the institute. "Dad," she said during a Sunday lunch, "I have special news for you." "What news?" "You're going to be a grandfather." Michael was moved. At 55, he would experience being a grandfather, able to pass on family values to a new generation. "That's wonderful. When?" "In 7 months." Jennifer cried with emotion upon learning she would be a grandmother. The family was beginning a new cycle, always based on love and the values that had guided them thus far. During the months waiting for his grandson's birth, Michael reflected on the legacy he wanted to leave for future generations. "I want my grandson to grow up knowing he can change the world," he told Jennifer. "He'll grow up in the right environment to learn that. And I want him to understand that true success isn't measured by how much you have, but by how many lives you positively touch." Michael's grandson was born on a sunny spring morning. He was named Gabriel, in honor of the boy from the story Elizabeth had read to Michael decades before, about a young man who saved a businessman's daughter. "The perfect name," Michael said, holding his grandson for the first time. "A name that symbolizes messengers of good news." Looking at that baby in his arms, Michael felt he had come full circle. From a desperate young waiter to a businessman transforming lives, from a man without prospects to a grandfather who would leave a legacy of love and social transformation. "Gabriel," he whispered to the baby, "your grandfather started all this by helping a stranger on the street. I hope you grow up always ready to help those in need." That afternoon, while the whole family gathered to meet Gabriel, Michael went out for a walk alone on the same street where it had all begun decades before. He stopped at the corner of Fifth Avenue and Madison Avenue and smiled, remembering the hurried young man who had chosen to stop and help Elizabeth Wilson. "Thank you," he said softly to the universe. "Thank you for all the blessings that came from that choice." A young man rushed past him, clearly late for some appointment. Michael smiled, remembering himself in that situation. Further ahead, he saw an elderly lady who had tripped and was struggling to get up. The young man who was running stopped immediately to help her, completely ignoring his lateness. Michael approached. "Can I help?" he offered. "Thank you, sir," said the young man. "I think she's fine now. You did the right thing by stopping to help." "I couldn't just ignore someone in need." Michael smiled, seeing in that unknown young man the same kindness that had guided him throughout his life. "What's your name?" he asked. "Peter Miller. And you?" "Michael Carter." "Peter, do you work around here?" "I work at a restaurant nearby." "Actually, I'm going to be late because of this stop." Michael took a card out of his pocket. "If you ever need a better opportunity, look me up. I have a company that values people like you." Peter took the card, surprised. "Thank you, Mr. Carter. But why would you do this for a stranger?" "Because someone once did the same for me." Michael said goodbye and returned home, knowing that the cycle of kindness and transformation would keep repeating, spreading through the world via small gestures that generate great changes. At home, he found the whole family gathered around little Gabriel. Elizabeth was holding their son while talking to Elizabeth Wilson, now an 80-year-old lady, but still lucid and active. "Michael," said Elizabeth Wilson when she saw him arrive, "I was telling our Elizabeth what you were like when I met you. A good-hearted young man who didn't hesitate to help a stranger." "And now look what that young man has built," said Elizabeth, their daughter, looking around at the whole family gathered. "I didn't build it alone," replied Michael. "We built it together. Every person here contributed to this story." Jennifer approached and hugged him. "And the story continues, my love, now with a new generation." Michael looked at his grandson sleeping peacefully in his mother's arms and felt a deep gratitude for everything life had given him. At 60 years old, he could look back without regrets and forward with hope. He had built a life based on solid values, created a company that transformed lives, formed a united family, and left a legacy that would last for generations. But more important than all of that, he had proven to himself and to the world that it's possible to do good and be successful, that kindness and prosperity can go hand in hand, and that small gestures of love can generate immeasurable transformations. That night, before sleeping, Michael wrote in his personal diary, "Today I completed another cycle of my life. I saw a young man making the same choice I made decades ago, stopping to help someone. This reminded me that our story never truly ends. It multiplies through the lives we touch and the people we inspire to be better." Gabriel, my dear grandson, when you grow up and read these words, I want you to know that your family was built on a simple but powerful foundation. Always do good, always help those in need, and never give up on your values. The world will try to convince you that you need to be tough and selfish to succeed in life. Don't believe it. True victory comes when we can grow without losing our humanity, when we achieve success without stepping on others. Your story is just beginning, Gabriel. Make it a story of love, kindness, and transformation. The world needs people like you. Michael closed the diary and lay down next to Jennifer, knowing he had lived a full and meaningful life. Outside, New York City continued its nightly bustle. Millions of people chasing their dreams, facing their challenges, making their choices. And somewhere in the city, perhaps another young man was stopping to help a stranger, unknowingly planting the seed of a new story of transformation and love. End of story. Now tell me, what did you think of this story? Do you believe kindness and success can go hand in hand like in Michael's life? Share your honest reflections on this transformation journey in the comments. And you, have you ever faced moments where you had to choose between self-interest and helping someone? How have these choices shaped your lives? Don't forget to leave a like if the story touched your hearts and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring narratives like this one. Thank you so much for joining me on this beautiful journey.